Tonight, attack on Imo prison and police headquarters is an attack on Nigerians, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo declares as he assesses level of destruction of facilities in Owerri. This is another police station in the state is invaded by gunmen. Change of guard at the Police High Command. President Buhari appoints DIG Usman Alkali as acting Inspector General of Police, replacing Muhammad Adamu. Courts across the country are shut down as judiciary workers embark on an industrial action to demand financial autonomy for the arm of government. And Minneapolis Police Chief testifies that ex-officer Derek Chauvin violated policy on use of a knee in a neck restraint during George Floyd's arrest. Plus business, sports, news from around the world and from Abuja.
On business news tonight, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation signs $1.5 billion Port Harcourt refinery rehabilitation with Italian engineering firm Mary Tecnimont.
On sports news tonight, Edo State put up spectacular show for opening ceremony of the 20th National Sports Festival at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City.
And from Abuja, Academic Staff Union of Youth Polytechnics declares strike to demand the implementation of a new salary scheme for polytechnic lecturers.
The attack on the Federal Correctional Center and the police headquarters in Owerri yesterday is a cause of worry for the federal government. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has visited the scenes of the attacks, condemning the action in strong terms and describing it as an attack on the nation and its people. But it is not just the Vice President who visited the scene of the burnt facilities. The Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, and the immediate past Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, inspected the level of destruction on the two national facilities and decried the level of devastation.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, arrived at the Nigeria Correctional Service, Imo State Command in Owerri to assess the level of damage following Monday's attack by some gunmen. He is accompanied by the Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, as well as the Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola. After the inspection of the correctional center, the Vice President moves to inspect the police headquarters, which was also attacked. Speaking to newsmen after doing the rounds, Professor Osinbajo minces no words in condemning the assault, describing it as an attack on the safety and well-being of citizens.
It's very evident that this is not just an attack. When you attack institutions of law and order and law enforcement, it's evident that it's not an attack on just those institutions. It's an attack on the welfare and the well-being of the people, especially when you free prisoners and persons who may be dangerous to the community, dangerous to the people. When such a thing happens, it's an attack on the people themselves, which is why this is particularly atrocious and condemnable.
The Minister of Interior, Rauf Aregbesola, who is also on the same mission, decries the recent spate of attacks across the nation.
From the preliminary report on the attacks, it is the worst of such ever witnessed in living memory. Unprovoked attacks on the institutions of state, especially the law enforcement institution, is nothing short of a declaration of war on the Nigerian state and our people. I am appealing to all escaped inmates to voluntarily return to custody. Those who heed this call will be given amnesty.
In what could be described as his last official engagement, the former Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, reminds officers and men of the Imo State Police Command of the need to decimate the group behind the attack on the command.
There is the need for all of us to work together and fish out this small group of criminals that are trying to make life bearable in the state. We must work together with all the stakeholders and fish out these criminals.
On his part, the governor of Imo State supports the former IGP by promising to help in fishing out those behind the attack and bring them to justice.
On the side of government, we will always do our best to complement the efforts of Nigerian Police Authority in making sure security, which is the primary purpose of government, is provided to our people.
Even though no actual number has been given, authorities say some of the inmates who fled the correctional center have been rearrested, while some came back willingly.
Shortly after the federal government's delegation left Imo State, gunmen again razed the divisional police headquarters in a Himimbano local government area of Imo State today, which is about 1.5 hours from Owerri, the Imo State capital. Sources say the gunmen came in buses and in large numbers arrived at the police station, freed all the suspects in detention before setting the place ablaze. When contacted, the Imo State Police Public Relations Officer Orlando Ikoku said he got a call from someone who informed him about the incident, but he cannot officially confirm it as he has not been briefed by the divisional police officer in the area. Well, there is a new sheriff in town. He is the newly appointed Acting Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba. President Muhammadu Buhari approved Mr. Baba's appointment today to take over from Mr. Mohammed Adamu, whose tenure was extended by the president for 3 months from February 4th. The Minister of Police Affairs, Megari Dingyadi, who announced the appointment on behalf of the president, says Mr. Baba's appointment was carefully made after the president considered issues of professionalism, competence, and numerous years of service. The president urged Usman Alkali Baba to, among other things, ensure the policing reform policies are fully prioritized to engender peace across the country.
Of course, you all police affairs. He has an important.
Mr. President has approved the appointment of an acting AIG, an acting IGP in the person of Usman Alkali Baba, PSC, FDC, with immediate effect. These changes are in line with the determination of Mr. President to rejig the security architecture of the country to ensure that security of challenges bedeviling the nation are brought to an end. Mr. President has therefore charged the new appointee to rise to the challenge to ensure policing reform policy of this administration are fully prioritized and implemented to enable the police perform most effectively for the peace and security of lives and property of all Nigerians.
The newly appointed Acting Inspector General of Police is 58 years old. He hails from Yobe State. Before his appointment, he was the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of the Force Criminal Investigation Department. He was also a former Commissioner of Police in the FCT and in Delta State. There have been reports of an offensive by security operatives against suspected criminals in some parts of Essien Udim local government area of Akwa Ibom State. An eyewitness told Channels Television that gunshots were heard in the area, suggesting that ground troops may have moved in to flush out criminal elements terrorizing the area. Helicopter drones are also reportedly used for aerial surveillance. Although the State Police Command is yet to confirm the report, residents say the onslaught comes about 1 week after some security operatives were killed by hoodlums. The slain police officers were in the area to keep the peace following an upsurge in criminal activities there. Staying with security, but this time from Imo to Kaduna State in northern Nigeria, where 10 people have been killed, 4 others injured in separate attacks by bandits in Kajuru, Kachia and Chikun local government areas of the state. The 3 local governments share common boundary. The Kaduna State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Arwan, who confirmed the incident, says the armed bandits barricaded the Kaduna-Kachia Road around Kadanye village in Kajuru local government area and opened fire on a bus as well as a truck carrying firewood. 5 people were killed in the attack while 3 others sustained gunshot injuries. In a similar attack, armed bandits barricaded the Kaduna-Kachia Road at the Doka axis, also in Kajuru, and shot at a truck, killing the driver. The bandits also invaded a herder settlement in Lowell village of Kachia local government area, killing one Ibrahim Haruno before carting away his 180 cows. Meanwhile, 4 members of the Anglican Church of Zaria Diocese in Kaduna have been reportedly kidnapped by bandits along the Kachia-Kaduna Road in Kajuru local government area of the state. The Archbishop of the Anglican Church, Kaduna Province, the Most Reverend Buba Lamido, told our correspondent that bandits abducted 4 of the passengers, injured 4 others, while the driver of the bus was shot dead. The bishop also explained that one of the injured persons has been discharged from hospital, while the remaining 3 are still receiving treatment. Away from security matters to the judiciary, courts in the nation's capital have remained shut as judiciary workers begin a nationwide industrial action. The staff union is downing tools to press home their demand for financial autonomy and independence of the judiciary at the state and federal level. Our correspondents monitored the courts and reports that officials of the union locked out staff, litigants and lawyers from the court buildings.
Empty car parks, gates locked with security operatives on guard. That is the situation at the Federal High Court in Abuja as the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria commences an indefinite strike action. The ever-busy FCT High Court and the National Industrial Court suffers the same fate as both places are deserted. The situation is not different from the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court as workers mill around the gates while officials of the union monitor compliance.
USU resumed this strike. It was a suspended strike in 2014-2015. We had this strike, and it all issue of independency of the judiciary, Section 121, to be obeyed by the governor. It's a constitutional matter in which the governors of this country swore to uphold and to obey, but they refuse to choose, or they choose and pick which to obey and which not to comply with.
On May 22, 2020, President Buhari signed into law an executive order granting financial autonomy to the legislature and the judiciary across the 36 states of the Federation. The Executive Order number 10 of 2020 made it mandatory for all states to include the allocations of both the legislature and the judiciary in the first-line charge of their budgets. The order also stipulates that for states which refuse to grant such autonomy, it mandates the Accountant General of the Federation to deduct from source the amount due to the state legislatures and judiciary from the monthly allocation to each state. But Jusun claims many states are not complying.
If you look at the legislatures and the executives, they are autonomous body. But we have interference into our affairs, just like as I quoted in Section 271 of the Constitution. It provides, and I quote, the appointment of chief judge of a state shall be made by the governor of the state. Why shall be made by the governor of the state? These are interference.
Members of the union are complying with the order to stay away from work as the union insists that the strike must continue till all demands are met by the government.
In part 2, after the break, more on industrial action as polytechnic lecturers get set to down tools also. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Attack on Imo prison and police headquarters is an attack on Nigerians. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo declares as he assesses level of destruction of facilities in Owerri, just as another police station in the state is invaded by gunmen. Change of guard at the Police High Command. President Buhari appoints DIG Usman Alkali as Acting Inspector General of Police, replacing Muhammad Adamu. Courts across the country shut down as judiciary workers embark on an industrial action to demand financial autonomy for the arm of government. And Minneapolis police testifies that ex-officer Derek Chauvin violated policy on use of knee on a neck restraint during George Floyd's arrest. And it's time to toss it over now to Gloria in Abuja for more on the news at 10. Hi, Gloria.
Hello, Amarachi. The Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics has declared a strike to demand the implementation of a new salary scheme for polytechnic lecturers. The national president of ASUP, Mr. Anderson Ezeibe, explains that the planned strike by the union would linger until all demands are met by the federal government. Apart from the new salary scheme, the union is also demanding for the payment of salaries and promotion allowances owed lecturers by some state governments.
Members of the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics meeting at the National Secretariat of the Union as the ultimatum issued to the federal government expires.
Despite assurances,
the national president of ASUP, Anderson Ezeibe, announces the union's decision to shut down all academic activities in polytechnics across the country, as decided at its 99th National Executive Council meeting held in Katsina State.
The scheme of service and the conditions of service, which are the second most important, governance documents in the sector, has been undergoing review since 2017, 4 years down the line. And we are saying that if we have a body in the same way that the colleges of education that the universities have, that we see us as a homogeneous unit and attend to our issues the way it should be, that a lot of the issues we have listed here will not be appearing. The infrastructure deficit in the sector is gaping, is there. And even the 800 billion we are talking about from that has already been eroded by inflation. You can imagine the value of 800 billion in 2014 and what it is today.
The meeting shifts to the negotiation table with the Minister of Education.
Has received any form of funds.
After listening to the presentation of the union, the minister assures that the concerns will be looked into.
I assure you, all these 13 points will be looked into carefully, and I believe you will be called for the meeting of the Representation Committee in the shortest possible time. I give you my assurance that you will all be attended.
Okay. Briefing journalists after the meeting, ASUP National President says the union will not back out of its strike action.
The strike has not been suspended. The strike just started. And the strike just started. It's just a few hours old. And what happened here today is the commencement of a process of resolution of the issues. And so until the issues are resolved to the satisfaction of the members of our union as represented by the National Executive Council of the union, we cannot be talking about suspension of the strike.
As the federal government and ASUP work to resolve their differences, polytechnic students will however have to stay at home, and it's not certain how long that may be. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, has debunked reports that the ministry is colluding with the Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari in pushing for the payment of judgment debts. Mr. Malami says the government will continue to scrutinize all judgment debts against the nation in order to prevent unscrupulous persons from circumventing the due process of recovering judgment debts. He insists that his office, in the overall interest of the general public, remains steadfast in saving the federal government from frivolous financial liabilities arising from suspicious judgment debts.
The Federal Ministry of Justice wishes to set records straight in order to correct willful falsehood and obliterate the nuisance value of the reports. The Chief of Staff to the President and the Attorney General of the Federation did not at any time force the Central Bank of Nigeria to pay $350 million to any person or entity, neither are they mounting pressure to effect hasty disbursement of the sum of $480 million. In fact, as a matter of fact, under the current policy of the federal government to settle certain outstanding judgments, there will be no cash payment. And that is by deliberate design to sustain the policy of accountability and transparency.
The federal government has received an additional 100,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine from India. The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa, made the announcement at today's press briefing in Abuja. And he says the vaccines donated by the government of India will help boost the number of Nigerians to be vaccinated. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the transitioning of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, PTF, to Presidential Steering Committee, PSC, on COVID-19, effective from April the 1st. The PSC on COVID-19, which will now operate with a modified mandate to reflect the non-emergent status of the COVID-19, will function up till December the 31st, 2021.
I informed you at the beginning of my remarks that the PTF had submitted its report to Mr. President, preparatory to the expiration of the 3-month mandate extension granted to the PTF. Mr. President has considered the report and has approved the following. 1, that the PTF would transition to a Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 effective from 1st April 2021 with a modified mandate to reflect the non-emergent status of COVID-19 as a potentially long-term pandemic. That the tenure of the Presidential Steering Committee shall last till December 31st, 2021. The Presidential Steering Committee would maintain the present constitution, functions and strategies of the PTF, be supported by a slim technical and administrative structure. The current National Incidents Manager, Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed, shall formally take over from the National Coordinator, Dr. Sani Aliu, and function as the Head Technical Secretariat and member of the PSC. I'll take this opportunity to thank our friends from the India High Commission for this generous donation. 100,000 doses of vaccines is not a small quantity. As a matter of fact, this is what a lot of African countries got through the distribution of the COVAX facility. So
Malam Aminu Kano International Airport is gearing up for the resumption of international flights 1 year after flight operations were suspended over COVID-19 concerns. Airport operators carried out test flights at the new terminal of the international wing of the airport today, ahead of the full resumption. The Minister of Aviation had earlier announced dates for the resumption of international flights at the Enugu, Kano and Port Harcourt airports. The reopening of international flights at the Enugu airport is scheduled to commence on May the 3rd. Kano was scheduled for April the 5th, while that of Port Harcourt International Airport is scheduled for April the 15th. In March 2020, President Muhammadu Buhari ordered the suspension of international flights to the airports to limit the spread of the virus and halt imported cases. Meanwhile, the Kogi State has finally received the first installment of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine after the state government refused to align itself with the guidelines and directives of the COVID-19 pandemic. This makes Kogi the last state in the country to take delivery of the vaccine. The government received about 16,900 doses, with the pledge that no one would be deprived from taking the vaccines.
I don't want to believe the language of mutation. Coronavirus behaving like chameleon, change to white today, tomorrow change to black.
An adamant Governor Yahaya Bello of Kogi State making his feelings known about the coronavirus. This instance was in June of 2020. He has, from the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic on many other occasions, refuted claims of its existence and the numbers put out by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC.
We should not be deceived again. Enough is enough. We should tell them that they should keep their COVID-19 to themselves.
But it appears there is a U-turn as doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine arrive the state, much to the delight of the Executive Director of the Kogi State Primary Healthcare Development Agency.
Yes, now we want to roll out the vaccination campaign. It was a breaking news to some people that finally, the way the press carried it, they say finally, vaccine arrived in Kogi.
However, the air needs to be clear on those eligible for this phase.
Our position as NMA Kogi State is that it is a healthy person who takes this vaccine. And so the vaccine is for healthy people. The vaccine is also for now for frontline health workers. And our members are in the front line.
The Commissioner for Health gives an assurance of more to come.
What we have here is about 16,900 doses out of the 33,000 that will finally be deployed to Kogi State. 33, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency informed me yesterday that they are going to deploy a total of 33,000 doses in this first batch.
As the administration of the vaccine commences, many residents keen on receiving the dose will be glad at the change of stance by the state government.
When the news at 10 returns, NNPC signs $1.5 billion Port Harcourt refinery rehabilitation with Italian engineering company Ma Tecnimont. That's in business news. Please join us again.
Welcome back to the news at 10. The Kano state government has slashed the salaries of political office holders in the state by 50% for the month of March due to the dwindling resources in the state. The State Commissioner for Information, Mohammed Garba, said in a statement that the action is due to a shortfall in the revenue accrued to the state from the Federation account. The statement explains that the decision will affect the governor, his deputy, all commissioners, special advisors, senior special assistants, and other political office holders. Or at the local government level, the salary slash affects the chairmen, vice chairmen, elected councillors, supervisory councillors, advisors and secretaries of local governments. Before the Vice President visited the scenes of yesterday's attacks in Owerri, he commissioned some infrastructure projects in Imo State and says Nigeria, as Africa's largest economy, can only provide opportunities for her people and a huge population if modern and digital infrastructure are made top priority. The Vice President also commended Governor Hope Uzodinma for his achievements in infrastructure in the state.
This was the state of the Dick Tiger and Chukuma Nwa Road before Senator Hope Uzodinma assumed office as governor of Imo State 1 year ago. Dilapidated, flooded and impassable. One year down the line, there's a breath of fresh air for residents of Dick Tiger and Chukuma Nwa following the rehabilitation and reconstruction of these roads by the state government.
May we welcome, put our hands together Let it not be we forgot our hands at home.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is the special guest. But first, residents of the area who are the immediate beneficiary recount their ordeal before now. For Governor Hope Uzodinma, the strategic and economic importance of the road prompted its administration to prioritize its reconstruction as it has been abandoned by previous governments.
These roads were not only strategic economic importance to our people, it is because it links the high-density commercial area of World Bank to the Federal Secretariat and the rest of the city. Yet it was abandoned by previous administrations for over 20 years. I'm happy that Your Excellency graciously accepted to come back to inaugurate these two roads today for the benefit of our people. By this act, sir, you would also be a star witness to the road revolution going on in the state under a progressive and focused APC government.
I can see everything.
And then the commissioning of the road by the Vice President.
And to the glory of the Almighty.
Put your hands together. The road commission.
Professor Osinbajo commends Governor Uzodinma for developing the state's infrastructure, which he says is in line with the Buhari's administration's master plan.
This road covers more than 10 streets, including the Dick Tiger Street. Now, already with the rehabilitation of this road, I'm told that the real estate value of this area is now on the rise. Before and after story of this restoration, as told by the grateful residents, is particularly heartwarming, and it tells you the value of good and purposeful government. As the governor has said, we have already begun to see what it means to have an APC government.
The rehabilitation and reconstruction of this strategic road will no doubt put an end to the hardship faced by commuters and residents of the areas and also boost economic activities. Iyitopo Kutei, Channels Television News.
More budgetary allocation to bridge the nation's poor digital infrastructure deficit is being canvassed as accountants converged on the nation's capital, Abuja, for the 50th Annual Accountants Conference. The president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, Mrs. Onome Adeoye, calls for investments in the sector to boost Nigeria's human capital as well as its literacy level. This, according to her, will showcase the nation's potential globally.
Accountants from across the country converge here to rub minds on how the fourth industrial revolution can become a boom for the accounting profession in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The budgetary allocation to digital technology must be a significant sum across the continent, along with strategic investments in developing digitally literate human capital for the continent. An overhaul of the educational systems in the continent will no longer be on the wish lists if Africa will participate and take advantage of the fourth industrial revolution. The policies and programs of government on digitization should not merely pay lip service, but must be thorough in commitment to position the continent to leverage the advantages and benefits of the fourth industrial revolution.
The investments in digital transformation is projected to come to about $5 trillion over the next 10 years. And accountants here want Nigeria to take steps to align herself with the advantage offered by the new digital age. But the former Emir of Kano, who speaks virtually, has a different perspective on how Nigeria can embrace the digital age.
How much are we investing in education? How much are we investing in science and technology education in particular? How much are we investing in the infrastructure that would allow for the emergence of the technologies that we need in the fourth industrial revolution?
Nevertheless, government is committing to address the challenges and implores members of the accounting profession to support government policies and fight against corruption.
We count on members of ICANN, both at home and in the diaspora, to buy into the current reforms undertaken by the Buhari-led administration and provide support in the area of policy formulation to improve the fiscal condition of our nation. Furthermore, the present administration will continue to support legislations and policies that will enable professional bodies such as ICANN to deliver on the core mandates of their professions.
For the next 3 days, deliberations here will focus on how members of the accounting profession can key into the digital revolution to contribute their quota to the nation's socio-economic development.
Let's get more business news. Here's Anne Wawodo.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. Let's begin with the federal government awarding the sum of $1.5 billion contract for the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery to Italian engineering firm Maire Tecnimont, which is expected to be completed within the next 44 months. Speaking at a ceremony for the signing of the contract, the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Mr. Mela Kyari, says the process for the selection of contractors for the rehabilitation of Warri and Kaduna refineries has started, and it should be finalized by June this year.
This is a complete rehabilitation work. You are going to have major engineering works, major procurement, major installation works, and ultimately you're going to do some commissioning work. I have said it over and over that we know that we haven't taken care of this refinery over the years, that we have mismanaged the turnaround maintenance exercises over time in the last 20 years plus. And this plant have degenerated to a level that today you are actually not doing a turnaround maintenance, you are actually retrofitting this refinery.
Xiaomi has launched Redmi Note 10 series smartphones right here in Nigeria as the company continues to push the envelope on budget devices. The new set of smartphones are expected to further boost the brand's share of the market. Sleek design, upgraded cameras, decent storage capacity are a few of the attractive features of the series.
The Redmi Note 10 series are the new introduction into Xiaomi's family of smartphones. They are mid-range phones going for a competitive price. This event is to officially introduce the phones into the market.
Challenge your boundaries. Xiaomi. And that
From display battery life to the storage capacity, the series, according to the makers, are designed to deliver more value for money. The smartphone offers a 108 megapixel primary camera and a 5 megapixel telephoto macro lens to provide new experience to the user. Redmi Note 10 is available in different colors. The marketers say the beauty is in the phone.
we call it the 108 megapixel Voyagers. This is the magic of the 10. It is not just about the 10, but it is what is inside. Now we can now welcome the 10, the Redmi Note 10 itself.
It is time to unveil the smartphone. The sensational Austin J.J. Okocha, who played professional football wearing jersey number 10, is the Redmi's ambassador. He did the honors.
To be the brand ambassador for this magnificent product, I think it's like marriage made in heaven. When you are talking about innovation for everybody, I think I was dribbling for everybody too. So I must say that I'm so happy to be associated with this brand.
Packed with a lot of features for a mid-range phone, the Redmi Note series are playing big on specification to price ratio.
We have everything that it takes that customers have been waiting for. We don't just produce without listening to our fans. Fans are very key and they are the cash cow of the business. So we listen to them and we've given them exactly what they want at the very best price.
Xiaomi has firmly established itself in the smartphone business and confident that its new variants will challenge the boundaries of clarity, sensation and speed.
The domestic stock market resumes Easter holiday on a negative note as investors lose over 80 billion in the first trading day in the month of April. Ekaite Afia has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. I'm Ekaite Afia. It appears investors resume from the long Easter holiday with a sour taste in their mouth as the bear held sway. And there you have it. The first trading session of the week ended in the red as the all-share index fell almost 0.4% at 38,766.61 points, while the equity cap lost 86 billion naira. Now, the banking sector was majorly to blame for today's losses as the counter shaved off more than 1.5%. Next in the trail of losses is industrial goods, which was down by 52 basis points. Now, the activity level was mostly lower today compared to Thursday's session as the total volume traded stood at 224.59 million units valued at 2.1 billion naira, while the deals traded were higher. Now on the top of the trades list are UACN, Access Bank, and FBN Holdings. And this week is just starting, so we can only wait to see how things will unfold in the market. However, analysts are expecting some volatility to continue. That's all for the Stock Market Report. I'm Ekaite Afia. Back to you.
Thank you, Kaite. Well, let's hope April turns out better. It's a similar case in the United States. Stocks fell from record levels after pressure from tech and healthcare dipped all indices on the markets. Here are the closing figures for today. And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Marachi.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Despite technological advancements and the changes occasioned by COVID-19, most women are yet to take advantage of the current situation to enhance their livelihood. This is the thrust of discussions at the First Bank annual First GEM conference held in Lagos. The event offered the platform where businesswomen are challenged to create advantages for themselves through education and engagement and prospects provided by technology.
Thank you very much.
Participation at the 4th edition of First GEM annual conference is virtual, with only a few participants, including the chairman of First Bank, Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, and top management staff present in the physical venue.
A round of applause for him. Thank you very much.
The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of First Bank, Adeshola Adeduton, explains what the conference is all about and the bank's approach in supporting women to create wealth and become financially independent.
Her bank, First Bank, provide access to resources and interactive workshops and advisory that help women to make informed financial decisions and build wealth management competences.
Speakers from within and outside Nigeria lead discussions on the current state of the global economy and how it impacts business decisions, what investors want, and negotiation as a tool for winning in business and career.
COVID has speed up a process of changes that we didn't have that we expected to have, but years ahead. So COVID has been a sort of a stress test in all business.
Investors are beginning to look for investments that take advantage of technology one way or the other.
Online play, meaning that there's a diaspora who is interested in your product. That diaspora, whatever may have happened to them, they are not poorer in Naira terms. In fact, they are richer in Naira terms. You may necessarily not earn FX from them, but you earn more Naira from them. And that also leads to an expansion of your market.
The icing of these thoughts is a challenge from the chairman of First Bank, Mrs. Ibukun Awosika.
Information is power. Knowledge is key. Your ability to understand what that information represents and to bring it home into how it impacts your business is key.
During the event, 5 shortlisted participants get the opportunity to pitch their business for a chance to win seed fund to kickstart or support their business. At the end, the judges pick Edu Cyclist as the first prize winner of 500,000 Naira. The 2 runner-ups also received 350,000 and 150,000 Naira. This year's First GEM conference concludes a series of activities organized by First Bank to celebrate the roles and successes of women in the society. Through its product, First GEM, the bank says it has successfully empowered women in states across Nigeria and the United Kingdom.
The way in which athletes perform.
Trial into the murder of George Floyd continues in the United States, with the Minneapolis Police Department's coordinator testifying that the neck restraint applied by Derek Chauvin, a former policeman during Floyd's arrest last year, was unauthorized and that officers are trained to use the least amount of force necessary. Prosecutors presented witnesses to try to further illustrate that he disregarded training on the appropriate use of force and dealing with crisis situations when he knelt on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes. Handcuffed Floyd fell limp and stopped breathing during the May 2020 arrest. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
And welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. North Korea has announced it will not take part in the Tokyo Olympics this year to protect its athletes amid the coronavirus pandemic. The country's National Olympic Committee made the decision after a meeting on March the 25th. The move puts an end to South Korea's hopes of using the Games to engage with the North amid stalled cross-border talks. The announcement makes North Korea the first major country to skip the delayed 2020 Games because of the pandemic. This will be the first time that North Korea has missed a Summer Olympics since 1988. Iran and the United States are holding indirect talks in Vienna aimed at bringing both countries back into full compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal, which the Trump administration abandoned in 2018. Iran insists there will be no direct talks between the two countries before the US lifts the harsh sanctions former President Donald Trump imposed after unilaterally abandoning the deal. The remaining members of the accord will work to find a way for President Joe Biden to lift the sanctions imposed by his predecessor and for Iran to return to the agreed limits on its nuclear program. The Minneapolis police chief has testified that ex-officer Derek Chauvin violated the agency's police on force during the arrest of George Floyd.
So that is not part of our policy. That is not what we teach, and that should be condoned.
The police chief said that the way Mr. Chauvin restrained Mr. Floyd was not in line with training and certainly not part of our ethics and values.
That should have stopped.
Mr. Arredondo told the court that Mr. Floyd should not have been restrained in the manner used by the officers after he stopped resisting, and certainly not once he was in distress.
Without immediate CPR, markedly decreases the chance of a good outcome.
The doctor who pronounced Mr. Floyd dead 30 minutes after he arrived at the hospital testified that his death was caused by a lack of oxygen. Jailed Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny has said that he has a persistent cough and a high temperature, and that there had been cases of tuberculosis in his prison cell. Navalny said that as many as 3 people from his unit have been taken to hospital with tuberculosis recently, and joked darkly that catching the disease might offer him relief from his other ailments. The opposition leader declared a hunger strike last week as he accused prison staff of denying him proper treatment for acute back and leg pain. Australia and New Zealand have announced a travel bubble.
This is an important step forward
in our COVID response.
New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced that residents will be able to travel between the two nations without having to quarantine from April the 19th. Although most Australian states have allowed quarantine-free visits from New Zealanders for months, New Zealand has continued mandatory quarantine from its neighbour. Israel's Prime Minister has tasked Benjamin Netanyahu with forming a new government after recent elections did not produce a clear winner. The announcement comes as Mr. Netanyahu stands trial on charges of fraud, bribery and breach of trust. The leader of the right-wing party now has an initial 28 days to try to secure sufficient backing from other parties in parliament to join him in a governing coalition. Mr. Netanyahu has denied all charges. The US Secretary of State has met with the Sudan Prime Minister to discuss negotiations related to the row over Ethiopia's dam on the Nile. Ethiopia, which says it has every right to use Nile waters long exploited by Egypt, started filling the reservoir behind the dam last summer after Egypt and Sudan failed to secure a legally binding agreement on how the dam will be operated. Years of diplomatic talks over the project have repeatedly stalled. Kenyans have been signing an online petition asking the International Monetary Fund not to give the government any more loans, citing corruption. The petition comes days after the IMF approved a 257 billion Kenyan shilling loan for Kenya in aid in the COVID-19 response. The country's public debt has grown by more than 1 trillion shillings in the last year, and Kenyans online have quoted President Uhuru Kenyatta's statement that the country loses 2 billion shillings every day to corruption. And finally, a former New Zealand Rugby World Cup winner has helped refloat a beached whale to safety. Ali Williams spotted the whale from a helicopter while hovering over Mangaway Heads Beach and later went to help move it with a friend. It took about an hour for Williams, his friend and several lifeguards to free the whale and put it back out to sea. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thank you so much, Simon. President Muhammadu Buhari has declared open the 20th edition of the National Sports Festival tagged Edo 2020. The president, who was represented by the Minister of Youth and Sports Development, Sunday Dare, urged the athletes to use the games to establish Nigeria's unity. Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki asked the athletes to express excellence, respect and friendship among themselves during the competition.
Today, our country is in dire need of peace, tolerance, and brotherhood. That is why we felt the necessity to host these games, despite the challenges, so that we can rekindle the vision of our past leaders in the same quest for excellence, friendship, and respect, particularly among the youth of our nation.
Indeed, the Sports Festival is rightly dubbed Nigeria's Olympic show that showcases Nigeria's best talents in over 32 different sporting events. By the sheer population of the participants, historically, normally about 14,000, the reach of this festival, it engages our youth, and the National Sports Festival deserves a prominent place and the priority of any government.
In the UEFA Champions League, Manchester City will take a narrow lead to Germany after emerging with a 2-1 victory from their hard-fought first-leg encounter against Borussia Dortmund at the Etihad. Liverpool's hopes suffered a huge blow as Real Madrid roared to a 3-1 win in the first leg of their quarter-final tie in Spain. The second legs hold on April the 14th in Dortmund and Liverpool. And that sports news is back to you, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Ayatunde. And the main news again. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, today assessed the level of destruction on the Owerri Correctional Center and the State Police Headquarters after it was attacked by gunmen yesterday. He said it was an attack on Nigerians. And shortly after he left the state, another police station was invaded by gunmen. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.